Okay, here's my sound preferences. I like a variety of different tunings, but really what gets my juices flowing, starting from the lower octaves, is in the bass. I like my bass punchy, tight, fast with a kick. I like a little bit of energy down there, maybe a little bit of warmth, but not too much into the getting into bass bleeding. It's got to have enough weight to make male vocals, make piano, cello, percussions, have the right tonality. When it comes to my mids, I do like my mids and mid clarity, but I don't like too forward a mid, so that's the upper mids I'm talking about. So keep the pinna gain down a little bit and not make it too forward a presentation. And when it comes to the highs, I do like my sparkly highs. At my age, I'm probably losing a little bit of the high frequencies. But not too much where it's sibilant and in your face. So that's what I like. Hello, Tone Deaf Monk. Let's start off this video with telling you, if you're new to joining my channel, on that you should go back and make sure that you've listened to my preferences. That'll play a big part into this review. And for those of you who are joining me again, I'm pretty sure you've skipped it all because you've heard it a lot of times before. But it really is relevant to know what the person who's doing the review or the impressions and sharing their observations with what they like and their biases, right? So the unique melody. The Stardust. First say thank you to Andrew at Music Tech for giving me a modest discount after reaching out and seeing these bad boys. I really wanted to have my own first set of unique melody. So I've listened to some other sets, the Mest Mark 1 and Mark 2, though I was definitely more enamored with the Mark 1 than I was the number 2. So that was kind of interesting. And these are different yet again. Here you kind of have this really very cool and kind of what I gravitated towards. I love these industrial designs in this titanium CNC Michelle. To go even further, what they've done is they haven't polished it. Really love that. It really adds kind of a nice texture to it. They feel good in your ears, so that doesn't matter too much. The nozzles are nice and long too, right? So that allows you to get good sound deep into your ear canal. And when that happened, you were rewarded with some great staging. Now, the stock ear tips that comes with it, small, medium, and large, could have done a little bit more on that. I would love to see a couple more sizes in that same ear tips for $799, right? The Stardust is a 6, let's put up the right amount of fingers, 6 drivers IM per side, 2 dynamic drivers, and 4 balanced armatures. And what I find not so unique, but a good observation, is the sub-bass driver is smaller than the bass driver, and they are crossed over and tuned differently to do their respective frequency ranges. So typically I found in IMs that the smaller the dynamic driver, the lower it goes. And the larger the dynamic driver, the better it does in upper mids and treble. Well, whatever. It's working good in this one. 4 BAs, unknown origin. 2 for the mid frequencies and 2 for the high frequencies. That's as much information as you and I could get, though I did reach out and ask. Unique melody for that, but I guess they chose to keep everything closer to the chest, and full respect for that. No issues there. Inside of the box, you also get, it's minimalistic. I quite like that. You get this kind of mushroom case. I call it the mushroom case because it looks like that, right? You can see where I went there. And you get this little mesh bag. And then they have the cable, which is they're calling the tune wire. And it's like this SPC cable. It's nice. It's gray and silvery and matches up quite nicely with the IM. But more importantly, they did make a note that they've tuned this cable to this IM. And I would say after switching cables that is entirely true as well. Their stock ear tips do a wonderful job, though I did switch to this little BGVP, I think they're called WO1s. They're more of a shallow ear tip, working great for me. So moving on to how this review is going to be broken down, I'm going to go into some observations, time-stamped here, and then I'm going to go into some track impressions, and then at the end, near my conclusion, I'm going to compare it to another IM that I've been listening to, the BGVP Phantom Special Edition, which is pricier, but I just wanted to give it some context into some of my observations, what I've heard. So the first thing starting off is that whether you believe this or not, I don't care. The time that I put this in my ears the very first time and burning it in with my burn-in rig for over 150 hours, the set to me after, and burn-in isn't a mental thing, it actually affects the drivers, the suspension, and if you knew anything about drivers and working with pro audio, you'd understand that as well. They mellowed, let's put it that way. Filled out very nicely and changed their sonic character from out of the box to after whatever I did, 150 hours. And just to go over that, just to tell you that I would be listening to it, have a listening session put them back on the burn rack, listen to something else, go do something else, come back to them, listen to another listening session, and finally, after I figured I had enough hours on them, then I did my final listening impression. So that's kind of how I did it. So one of the things that really stood out for me, the thoughts that I actually wrote down, was how the hell, I said, is the Stardust doing all of the mid-range and treble with just 4 balanced armatures? The detail, the smoothness, the resolution, it's quite well done. And that is an answer, I think, that you can simply chalk it up to a combination of tuning, driver selection, the 4-way crossover, making sure each driver's or set of drivers is doing exactly what they want it to do, and you get a very nicely tuned IM, nothing overly boosted or recessed, and that's how the Stardust comes across. It very much follows the recording. No addition of coloring to the sound, very much at all. Poorly recorded tracks will sound like shit. The Stardust will reveal their shortcomings, and well-recorded tracks will reward you with a very surreal playback. Not all IAMs do it. Some smooth it over way more than others, and that's not as noticeable. So that's why I mention it, right? You're going to get a feel of the character I want to convey about the Stardust. And I'm doing this so you wouldn't pick one up, or you would pick one up if you know what you're getting into. And I think that's what reviewers should be doing more and more, right? The Stardust are very monitor-like. They have an affinity to sound more towards the technical, cooler side than the lush, musical, colored side. And that'll come into play later when I do a comparison, right? Another thing that stood out for me is the bass. The depth and the texture and the naturalness has to be commended. Never overbearing, never exasperated, very well controlled, and simply lovely. The bass is I love on this set very much. Does it hit my perfect tonal sonic preferences? No, but you got to be able to appreciate what they do, and they do the bass very, very well. Now, to describe more of how these things sound, to get you a good feeling of how I heard it, let's start off with some track impressions. Let's try Reckoner from the Robert Glasper Trio. He does very good recordings. All his albums are very well recorded, very well mixed and engineered. In this track, bass is deep and resonating, showcasing the Stardust ability to control the emotion of the track and fill in the stage with fantastic piano that sounds correct, and drums that just make you want to keep listening forever. It was a very well done replay. And I wrote the next line, which was really funny. It said, "Driver count be damned, the Stardust is special." And going in further to that later in this review, I have a thought on that. And I hope I remember to share it. Listening to some EDM, Young Dr. Kirk by Boris Blank, the fellow who does Yellow. The Stardust is incredibly trippy, spacious, 3D, and presents with layered and distinct placements of the instrumental in their own space. Again, this is a standout feature found in the higher end IAMs. What the cheap ones don't do, the $200 don't do, this one can. Bass is standout and fun, but may not be my favorite for EDM. It just didn't have enough slam, the speed, but it sounds very good. The Stardust does bass in its own special way, and it does keep in line with its core balanced tuning. While not as fun as a more colored, warmer IM, it certainly does make an engaging listen when you're using this kind of genre, right? So, and will it let you turn it up? Yes, it will. Because the top end never really gets out of control. The whole IM, the whole Stardust is epitome of control, right? Queen Mary by Francine 13. Oh my God, I wrote that bass drop into the sub bass is simply sublime. So deep, so controlled, and yet textured. The mids and vocals so effortlessly uncolored. I'm going to use that word a lot in this review. Treble is beautifully done, very detailed, and perfectly balanced in the mix. For you Swifties, Exile. From the duet from Taylor Swift and Bon Iver. I love duets for evaluation on vocal tonality, correctness. On this track, the male vocals are very well done, deep with great weight. On the other side, Taylor's vocals are pitch perfect and playback without a hint of colorization or added warmth. Now, this is another track that I use for stage placement and tonality. So in this track, Bubbles from Yoshi Hawakawa, he uses a lot of elements, and in this one he's using balls, different weights of the balls, and you can hear if IM is resolving enough, you can hear the weight of the ball. Ping pong sounds hollow and light. A baseball is gonna sound funky, and a basketball is gonna sound with a reverberation, right? How a basketball should sound. And every ball in this track has its own unique tonality and weight. Big balls sound weighty, and ping pong balls sound exactly like they should. So there you go. Now for staging, a terrific job on separating and layering the stage, allowing the exact ball drop to play in its own space while allowing an unhurried playback of each note effortlessly blending into each other in this entire track. It was well done. And again, I'm pointing that out because it was a really standout playback that, again, you see in higher end IMs where you might be missing that, not stepping up into this level, right? So, Rackham, another one I use pretty much all the time, live version from Dead Can Dance. I use this track to get a sense of stage placement and the realistic nature of transporting you into the venue, right? In this track, the Stardust is immense with a feeling of pent-up energy about to be released in the stadium. Big, open, spacious, and yet intimate where it needs to be. As intended in this recording, I think. Simply transporting you into the music and losing yourself into the experience. The Stardust simply disappears. And again, I've used that in a couple of these track examples. Sometimes when you put IMs in your ears, you get left, right, and you can tell you can tell that you're using IMs. And that's the difference between maybe some higher-end stuff like some high-end headphones and certainly in high-end home audio where you're sitting down and you're listening to it and you cannot hear the gear. You can just hear the music. And that's where the Stardust does a really good job. It disappears and you are simply surrounded by a euphoria of music. Born to Kill. I'm switching venues here again. Matthew Good Band, some rock, detailed, clean with hi-hats clearly present. Again, nothing overly boosted or exaggerated or recessed. Everything laid bare in the recording. Great vocals. I like my music personally, lusher and thicker as my personal preferences, but those looking for a very uncolored resolving playback, look no further. born with horns. MGK, right? Great snappy bass. Amazing guitar riffs and super clean vocals. No added bloat, just rock laid bare in its barest form. Raw rock. Did I like it? Yes. Would I pick this setup for rock music if that's primarily what I was listening to? Maybe, but let's jump more into that. And before I get there, let's talk about some of the Stardust needs in order to get there and how I got here in my journey with the Stardust. So I have tried pretty much, yes, all sources that I own, trying to find perfect synergy, but more than importantly, I think that is really important, but more importantly for me was to get a good sense. For me, it takes quite a few music sessions, listening sessions, to really wrap my head around the tonal character of gear. I can't push out stuff very fast. It just doesn't work for me. And this is one where I tried a bunch of sources. The Ibasso DCE was probably my favorite. The Ibasso DX 340 on a linear power supply, 12 volt in, very, very nice. I also tried it with some tube amps, with the Nunchaku. I tried it with everything. Even the Hibby R6 2025. Yep. And the Shandling M1 Plus. So what I came to conclude is the Stardust needs some power to get going. At low volumes, they are very mid-centric, but you turn up the volume to get the bass to come out to play, and they sound a lot more balanced. So yes, I think you do need some power. I don't think I'd run this thing off a dongle. That's for sure. This is one of these sets that can pull off stereo bass with great layering. Again, in my reviewing history, in my 30 years of audio, there's some gear that the higher end stuff, okay, to be quite honest, there are ones that can pull off proper stereo bass, where it is vibrating, in this case, your eardrums, but most bass is mono, by the way. The lower the frequency, the more mono it is. I don't know if people know that. And the higher the frequency, the more direct it is to your ears. So that's how we hear layering, and spatial awareness is more to do with the higher frequencies. That's why IAMs and gear that are rolled off in the top end don't give you a very good stage. Well, there's not too many gear that can do proper stereo bass. The Stardust is one of them. It can pull it off with great layering. In this next track, what came to mind, Welcome to the Machine, live from Roger Waters, okay? Deep stereo layered bass. This was a phenomenal recording that I have, and it was simply fantastic. Howling, live, another live. I listen to a lot of live tracks from the Royal Albert Hall. This was RYX and the London Contemporary Orchestra. This is another great recording where the Stardust really has the ability to transport you into a venue that makes you feel you are right there in the audience. The IM simply disappear and you're right there. Next track is Escanor Rap by Daddy Fat Snaps. Bass with rap music is done with an elegant control. Not a whimper was heard from the dynamic drivers to do the bass, and the sustained hits at a level that isn't going to make isn't going to make a bass head happy, but the Stardust did it with finesse, and it did it with control, and it did it properly with, again, nice texture. So would I pick up this set for rap? Probably not. So let's jump in and sort of wrap this up here, and some of my notes again at the end. When I said the Stardust does so many things great: layering, stage, incredibly uncolored mid-range, deep textured bass when called upon, treble extension with great air and details, tone and timbre that is quite literally spot on. I thought, who would this set be good for, right? I think someone looking for a very uncolored playback, close as possible to the recording with nothing boosted or recessed. Someone who's looking for something maybe on the colder analytical side rather than a thick, warm, lush playback. Who is this not for? Well, bass heads. I think people who love the texture and the warmth of a more colored sound. People who are interested in getting lost in the music rather than trying to hear all the nuances in the playback. This set probably won't be for you. And to put more context into that, when I did this comparison to this other one, and this is the BGVP Phantom Special Edition, this is $1,200 or $1,100 in the Phantom, using a different driver count. So it's 2 dynamic drivers again, but done differently, concentrically stacked. Then 2 balanced armatures, 2 EST drivers, and 2 Sonyan bone conduction drivers. So different tuning. Here's a graph of the 2 together. So they have a different tuning, but this kind of just hammered home for me the overall sonic character of the Stardust, and what it does do really well, and what it does differently from something that is, I would consider the Phantom a more colored IM. So listening to Holly Cook, some reggae. She has great recordings, by the way, as well. Tiger Bomb. And in this track, the Stardust just does a raw playback. Cold, clean, sterile. But on the Phantom, all of a sudden the extra thickness of some of the lower bass comes into play and making the bass stand out. As in reggae, I think it really should. And Holly's vocals get infused more with a depth and a richness that is missing on the Stardust. The Phantom plays back with emotion that is simply missing in the Stardust. And I'm going to start using that word more into the end of this review because it'll make sense. Oblivion by Trio de Corda. Now, this was one of these tracks that I have. It's a 1-bit DSF recording. On the Stardust, it is beautifully clean, precise, and uncolored. The cello and instrumental is all very well done and balanced. How do you fault that? You can't. But on the Phantom, the violin has a richness and a depth to the notes, and it goes more into a holographic experience than the Stardust does. The cello has now a more defined weight and body that is missing on the Stardust, and where it starts coming in, I didn't hear the accordion. I first listened to the Stardust and then I flipped over to the Phantom, but I didn't hear the accordion playback, and it was missing on the Stardust, and I had to go back and listen to the Stardust again to pick it up, and I realized that in the mids, that part is quite recessed, and you had to go back. You really go back and actually listen to it, where on the Phantom, it really just came out to play, and it added a more richness and a thickness to the notes that made it more musical, right? So to sum up here, Listening to these two sets really summed up for me how the Stardust comes across. Resolving to a fault. Nothing boosted to color the sound, a bit sterile, cold, analytical. Those aren't negatives per se. That's just in how I perceive it, right? An IM that would rather follow the recording than add any warmth or lushness to the playback. The Stardust will give you a replay of your music with a clean, resolving layering that will allow you to pick apart the track and test your gears, sonic attributes very well, very monitor-like. A 6-driver IM that makes no compromises, I think, to tonal accuracy and accurate playback. That, in my opinion, is what the Stardust is all about. Will it be for everyone? No. Not everyone will like the emotional disconnection to kind of pull you into the music. But on the other side of the coin, a lot of people are looking for an IM that is really that can really understand the depth and layering of the music without colorizing in any way, shape, or form. And again, I think to sum up the Stardust, that's how it comes across. It is, in my opinion, a really well-tuned, really well-done IM. And if that is what you're looking for at $799, it is, I think, a pretty good value. It performs in top-tier stuff from some of the stuff it's doing with 6 drivers. And to go back into that one, I'm going to finalize this review with one more note or thought, I guess. Those 4 those 4 balanced armatures, I'm thinking to myself, okay, they did a fabulous job and tuned this exactly the way they wanted to, including using that cable to fine hone the sonic signature of the Stardust. And one of the things that I thought of, okay, well, if you wanted to, some IMs, like we'll take the Cantor, for instance, 14 balanced armatures. Yes, you do get a more of a depth and a richness to the mid-range, and that's why they were using more balanced armatures to fill out the mid-range more. But I think that would go against really what the Stardust is really all about, and a kind of a minimalism and in an industrial kind of clean, resolving nature. And that's what the Stardust is all about to my ears. And I'm glad I got ears on. So thank you for watching my review, and I hope you learned a bit. And until next time.